good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Cloud Conversations. My name is Azure McFarlane, and I'm one of the co-hosts today. I am with my friend Kat Green. I don't know which side of the screen you're on today. And we are joined by Zoe Wilson, new MVP, also a director at Agilicis. And this is our show today. Welcome, Zoe. Hi, Kat. How are you guys doing?
Woo!
Hey.
We got a second all-female show, by the way.
I know. I love this.
We're making this a trend now, which is I'm enjoying it as well. So
I did notice that when I saw the invite.
oh yeah, we'll keep it all female. We did our first all female one a little while ago. So it's nice to have another one. But Zoe, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. So for those who aren't aware, can you just introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, what you do, tell us a little bit about what's kind of led you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with both of you today. As Azure said, I'm the Director of Innovation and Customer Success at a Microsoft partner called Agilicis. I'm an MVP for Office Apps and Services, and actually I've worked with collaborative technology, starting with SharePoint for probably 16 or 17 years now, so quite a while. And early in my career, I was always very much a hands-on techie. I love to kind of, get into the nuts and bolts of tech and figure out how we could use it to help make things easier. And with SharePoint, I love the fact that it really allowed me to do that in a way that actually helped me to talk to the business as well. So if you go back, 15, 17, 18 years working in IT, I mean, first of all, being female was an anomaly, particularly in the north of England where I was from. But IT at that point wasn't business facing. It was just a load of blokes who were sat in some corner of the office and they didn't ever talk to the rest of the business. And I was always the one that stood out because I got to work with everybody. I got to work with all of the departments, everybody across the business, and really learn how, what issues they had with their processes and how we could help make it better. And that's been the driving force really that has led me to get to where I am now. And then about 6 or 7 years, I moved into leadership roles, so managing teams of people who do that. And actually, that's been great as well, because it lets me do the same thing on a much bigger scale, actually, and have more impact.
Yeah, I think that's so cool going from, I guess, to have that kind of leadership level, you need to have had experience, hands-on techie, to really understand the nuts and bolts of it. I guess, what's the kind of key difference then between, would you say, going from that kind of hands-on role to that leadership role? Has there been a main kind of challenge or difference that you've seen going from one to the other? Because for those who are listening who might want to pursue that as a career path, I guess what would be the kind of key differences or challenges you found?
Yeah, so I'd say it's not for everybody. There's nothing wrong with being an individual contributor, and actually the role that I'm in at the moment is an individual contributor role. But I really enjoy building teams, and I think again it comes down to your ability to have those relationships with people and understand what motivates people and get the best out of them. And managing teams, and building them, it has been really rewarding. I think there's a lot more pressure. If I look at what's different, the focus and the things that you need to care about are different, because when you're building solutions, whether it's for customers or colleagues, you just need to make sure that it works and that it's delivering the outcome that you're looking for. But if you're managing a team, you've got that whole people development and well-being aspect of it, which is a completely different lens, really. But they're both equally rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I guess it's you're responsible for other people, and your kind of reputation is also reliant on other people doing a good job as well. So it's gonna, freak you out a little bit.
and as a hands-on techie as well, one of the hardest things that I've seen this with other people as well, when you move into that leadership role, it's being able to let go and actually delegate, because you know how you do it. And you might think you can do it better than the other people can, but you've got to step back and give them the space to do it, because if you don't, that's just an absolute recipe for burnout.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, Kat, do you see yourself? Have you been a people manager before? Like, are you an individual contributor?
I'm definitely an individual contributor. I have done management before, not in IT, and I didn't like it.
What didn't you like? Was it that people management aspect of it?
I didn't like other people were representing my work.
Ooh.
So I'd have to rely on people doing a good enough job for me and representing me in that. So if they messed up, it looked like I messed up. And I didn't like that. So I liked the idea of just being responsible for my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm quite selfish in that sense, but so I don't know if that's the path.
Relinquishing control. I feel like
control is the thing.
Yeah,
control issues. we're like this on the camera, like
if nobody can see the visualization, we're like holding our hands, like trying to squeeze it very hard.
That's how bad issues we have. My goodness.
I've helped with like interns at previous companies and doing training, and I found less of the representation part, although now that you're saying it, I could totally see myself not also wanting that. I think it's
what we're saying, Zoe, is we don't want your job.
No, I feel like people management is so hard. There's so many facets to it, right? Because you still have your own job to do on top of everything else. It's like in parallel. And I almost feel like, and I don't know if this is the case for you, Zoe, but when I've seen managers, it's the people aspect, right, is a really big part of it. And then you still also have to do your job on top of that. And maybe there's not necessarily, at least the managers I've seen, that maybe that work-life balance isn't quite there. And I find that a little bit hard to know, like, okay, like how much do I invest in people to make sure that they're successful and doing their job well and feeling supported, and then also being able to do my own thing too. I remember my previous managers, like their calendars were just like full of meetings, and I'm like, if that's the future that's being held for me, I don't know if that's where I belong either.
And that was why I moved back into an individual contributor role, actually, because I got to a point where the team had grown. It had grown so big that it was difficult for me to manage it. And we within this team, there was about 30 of us, and there wasn't any structure that meant that I had people I could delegate to. So it was just all on me. And we did managed services, we did professional services. I was involved in pre-sales and bids and all kinds of stuff. And it got to the point where I wasn't doing any job very well. And I was working ridiculous hours, and everything that went out was subpar to my standards, and that's not somewhere I'm comfortable living. So we kind of restructured the team and put a new management layer in, and I moved into an individual contributor role that was focusing more on strategy. And I do still, because I'm at a kind of a leadership level within the organization, I do still get to influence. I still kind of matrix manage people. I kind of take the lead on projects and things like that, but I don't have to deal with the HR stuff and the development. And that's okay. It can be really rewarding though. So there was a guy who worked for me. He came in and he was a little bit wet behind the ears. Came in, he dropped out of uni. His only job that he'd had was working in an Apple Genius bar, and this was his first proper job. And I think he came in still wearing his school shirt. That was kind of his office attire, and he was just absolutely clueless, but he was just so eager and keen to learn, and he wasn't afraid to ask questions. And he was to this day, he's one of my greatest success stories, managing him and seeing him progress. Within a year, I think he'd been promoted out of my team into an internal development academy for cloud skills. Then he was promoted again into another role. And then during the pandemic, he actually left the organization and went to do the Lewagen coding boot camp in Sweden. Just completely changed direction. Awesome. And he's absolutely thriving in that. And to see him go from being that, really kind of clueless individual to growing and blossoming like that, that's the rewarding side of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's amazing.
I feel like
go on, sorry, Azure.
I was gonna say, I feel like for management. Oh no, it's fine. I was gonna say, I feel like for management. Oh, you know what? I lost my thought. I'll come back to it. It really just like went away. Oh, I was gonna say. Oh, I find that there are people like very driven folks who have the people skills turn out to be like the best managers. And I've been in spaces where people are really technically good at their roles, but don't quite have the interpersonal skills to manage all of it either. And so you just get promoted because you've been in a role so long. But there's the opposite side of the coin where it's like, you are obviously very good at what you do and managing people, and you want to be good at all of it. But like you said, being spread a little thin, I feel like comes with like that territory too of being good at the people aspect and being good at the technical aspect, and just not being able to devote enough time to all of it that you would really like to.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. I think I like to do a good job, and when you're working all hours and you feel like every job that you do is rubbish, that's when something needs to change, really, isn't it?
Yeah, understandable.
Definitely. So talking about the kind of technology that you're specializing in, you mentioned obviously SharePoint, the collaboration aspect. You've done some really, really great speaking sessions on Teams and on Viva, on conferences all around the world, which is absolutely amazing. What would you say is your favorite feature of Teams or module of Viva? What have you got a favorite bit? Or I'm assuming those are the ones that you're specializing in, just because you've spoken about them so many times.
Yeah, so I've got one for each, actually. So
Right.
if I look at Microsoft Teams, what I absolutely love is the fact that you can present like a rock star. All of the presenting features are just absolutely brilliant. And so you'll know this, Kat. I don't know if you'll be familiar with this, Azure, but in the UK, throughout the pandemic, we've had these Downing Street briefings, and there's the chief medical officer who has just absolutely destroyed the phrase "next slide, please." So whenever anybody says that in a meeting that I'm in, I feel like a kitten somewhere is dying. It's just horrendous.
Don't say that when you're cat.
Yeah, it's honestly, that phrase just needs to vanish from the collective vocabulary of the world. It is so easy to, to be able to deliver really slick presentations. And I've actually taken my senior leadership team through this and shown them how to take control from each other and how to use the different dynamic presenter views. And early in the pandemic, I was playing with OBS when they released the NDI capability and kind of overlaying my camera on top of the presentation. So the fact that you can just do that now out of the box is fantastic. And then from a Viva perspective, it's got to be, for me, Viva Insights. I think the personal productivity, the personal insights, they keep me on top of what I need to do, because even though I'm not people managing now, I still have a really busy job. But actually, it's the leader insights. I think those are the ones that are really going to allow us to transform how we work and understand work styles and behaviours and protect the well-being of people.
Definitely.
Sorry,
Azure. No, sorry.
I was going to ask, the leader insight sounds interesting. What is this? Because I don't think I'm familiar with it.
So, if you're familiar with Viva Insights, what you'll likely have at the moment is the free version, which is the seeded version, which is included in your license, and that's going to give you insights into how you work. What your focus time is, all of that. What the leader insights doing is kind of summing all of this up across the organization and at a leader level, giving you visibility of work styles across the organization. So what's the meeting culture like? What is the coaching culture like? Are managers actually spending enough one-to-one time with their direct reports? Are people working too many hours? Have they got enough focus time? How much collaboration time have they got? And it's these kinds of insights, I think, they come with the premium license, but these are incredibly powerful. And then you can do some really cool stuff, because you can pull this out of workplace analytics, which is where the kind of underlying data lives. And you can start to do some stuff in Power BI where you actually overlay this with data from other data sources. So if you take HR data, how much sick leave are people having? And you have to do this on a trend analysis basis, because it's all anonymized. But if you look team by team, how much sick leave are people having? Are they taking their paid time off? How many people, what's the trend for people who are stressed? And then you can overlay this with the work styles and start to really understand working patterns across the organization.
It's like for those managers, Azure, who, like you said, there's some managers who are really good at the technical stuff, but not the people side. That can help with the people side, because then you can see if somebody's burnt out or working late or without being in the room with them. It's that idea of being able to see that information when we're working from home. So yeah, for those who may be more introverted managers who prefer the technical side, there's tools to help you.
I think that's really powerful information, right? You just get it right up front. That's really cool. Thanks for explaining that. I only get the daily emails from Viva, and this is the first time in an organization that I've worked that has had that. My last organization hadn't adopted it yet, so I'm learning all these cool things now working for a tech company too that they've adopted, which is really neat. It's great to talk to the people who have their hands in this too. I think that's something really cool about this community. It's like, oh, I know somebody who's directly work on that. I love it.
Definitely. So have you got any advice then for organizations who are maybe looking at deploying Viva? They don't really know where to start. Is there a best practice that you've seen with maybe some of your customers, or is there not really? Is it just kind of, it's new, we don't know what's happening with it? What's the advice?
Yeah, so for me, the customers that we work with are UK public sector. So I'd say they're quite budget constrained. And they've had a really hard time the last 2 years. They've essentially had to pivot to working remotely, the same as all of the rest of us. But they've had to do that and keep all of our essential public services still running. So a lot of them, from what I've seen, have not been in the right headspace for it. And I think the first few months of Viva being out was essentially educating them, helping them understand why they should care about employee experience and what we actually mean and how Viva can help with that. And I do think that there's an education piece that's needed here. One of the ways that I talk about this is to take people through the concept of the digital employee experience, replacing the physical one. So if we don't have offices we go to anymore, if we onboard virtually, if the way that a person absorbs the culture and the ethos and the mission and the vision of an organization is digital, the way they connect with people, the way they access corporate resources, it's not tapping people on the shoulder anymore in an office. All of this it has to work digitally. And if that's rubbish, people will have a rubbish experience working at a company. So it's thinking through, and this is the right time now as people start to look at what the future of work is and what hybrid actually means, because it doesn't just mean sometimes you work at home and sometimes you work in the office. This is the time to think about what you want that experience to be like. And what we've seen some success with is people starting with Viva Connections. I call that the gateway drug for Viva, because it's free, it's seeded within the licensing again, and it's just such a great way to show how powerful it could be when you start bringing corporate resources into teams, which is where people are spending their entire workday. And if I look at our own experience with it, I think we deployed it within about 4 days of it being made generally available, because we were part of the content services program, so we'd had sight of everything that was coming and we knew what we needed to do. And we saw a 10-fold increase in engagement with our intranet. And I thought that it would drop. Awesome. You know what it's like when you've got a shiny new button. I thought it was just shiny new button syndrome. Like, oh, what's this? But actually, it was so useful that engagement has been sustained continuously. And we've actually seen HR developing other apps in Teams as well now.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a quick win, the Viva Connections piece. It's a good place to start. It doesn't cost anything. If you're in SharePoint online, if you've got an intranet in SharePoint, it just makes sense. Bring it into Teams, get everybody's dashboard configured, and we've got everything in absolutely one place. And what I've found as well, there's customers who will go for different aspects of Viva, sometimes all of it, sometimes there'll be little bits of it. So I think it's starting with, there's quick wins definitely, but then there's looking at what you want to get from employee experience. What are the challenges you're having with hybrid work? Because the chances are there'll be one of the modules that kind of solves that. Viva Learning is kind of my favorite at the moment, just because I use it more so than any of the other ones, because it's got all of the Learn courses and everything on there. I'm just like, oh great, I can just bookmark the ones that I've got and just keep track. So that's the one that I find the most fun.
And have you done much with the premium version of Viva Learning?
Not really. I've not. So we got the premium version and played about with like assigning courses and things like that. I haven't integrated it with an LMS yet though. So I'm yet to do that myself, but yeah, I'm excited. to try that.
Yeah.
Wanting
No,
to...
I'm at the same place.
Yeah, I think because there's not many at the moment, is there, that integrate with it? So it's kind of, if you've got it, you've got it. If you don't, you don't. And I've loads of customers do ask, is Viva Learning a learning management system? And it's like, well, no, but it can complement a learning management system. You can bring your learning management system into Teams, so that everything's in one place. So yeah, for anybody listening, Viva Learning definitely complements an LMS if you already have one in place. But I did want to take a little turn and congratulate you on becoming a most valuable professional MVP. Woohoo! Well done. It was a little while ago that you got that.
Yeah, it was August last year. August. I've actually just had to fill in my first renewal, which it felt very bizarre when it only feels like 2 minutes since I actually got the award.
Do you know what? You blink and it just, time goes so fast, and you're like, oh, it's been a year already. My goodness. So amazing. Well done. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey of MVP? What's changed since becoming MVP, or what's happened since then?
Yeah. So for me, it's one of the interesting things about the pandemic, isn't it? Because I think working from home and being able to join all of these sessions virtually actually helps me be able to contribute on a much bigger scale and to contribute to events worldwide. So actually, I think it was I'm not going to say a blessing in disguise, because that just sounds awful, but there was definitely an upside in terms of that for me. I don't think anything's actually changed really since becoming an MVP though. I think you've got deeper access into the MVP community, but I already had quite a lot of connections from the events I did anyway. And the products group, the kind of access that you get, I think that's all great. But actually, I think it's just more of the same. It's just, when you're already kind of deep in the community and contributing anyway, it just allows you to do that on a bigger scale, really, doesn't it? One of the things that I have been doing though is actually mentoring other people to get there as well, because I think you have to help other people follow in your footsteps.
Yeah, definitely. So that mentoring, that's amazing. Are you using, because I've been looking into doing mentoring, and I'm not sure how to approach it. So there's a couple of apps, Microsoft apps, that are available that you can use, where you can kind of put your profile on there and say, look, I'm looking either to be mentored or to mentor someone. How would you kind of approach looking to get into mentoring, or how did you get into it?
So for the two people who I'm actively working with at the moment, they're both people that I've got personal relationships with. And actually, I'd already started kind of looping back and pulling them through behind me before I even got my nomination, because I knew I was working towards it. And then there's this amazingly intelligent, passionate lady that I work with, who's in her kind of early mid-20s, I think. And the first time I heard her present at work, I just thought she's just got so much passion and enthusiasm. She works with AI as well, so that's quite a new and upcoming area. I just thought I need to get my arms around her and bring her on this journey as well. So it's all been personal relationships, really. But I think, like you said, there are tons of great tools and systems out there that can help you find people.
Yeah, I think organically is probably the best way. From you find people in the community that you're working with and talking to anyway. And then it kind of goes from there. Azure, do you do any mentoring or anything like that?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, I do. I've had some opportunities where I've gotten to teach at different spaces, like Power Platform School, which is focused on getting minorities in tech, specifically focusing on the Black and Asian minority communities. So I've taken on some folks there for mentoring, but also people will just reach out through Twitter, to be honest. And they're like, hey, I want to learn more about Power Automate. And sometimes it's just a simple connection if they have a question, and then it turns into something a little bit more. So for me, I guess I gotta just, anybody who wants to come into the fold, I'm happy to help them. And if I don't have the bandwidth, right, to do more one-on-one coaching, there's always somebody else who is looking to do it. I feel like it's a big way to contribute back to where you've come from. And along my journey too, I've had so many people who are always there and ready. I have a friend, sorry, Ed, I'm going to put your name out there, Ed Gonzalez, who is a really good friend of mine. But anytime like I get stuck on a flow or something, he's like, hey, let's hop on a call. And that's the kind of attitude that I want to have towards like mentorship too. And one of my students from Power Platform School last year, she then became a mentor like this year for Power Platform School, which I thought was really neat.
Yeah.
And then she actually reached out to me on Twitter today and she's like, hey, I kind of want to get more into public speaking. Would you be willing to mentor me that way? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so I find it very fun because I find that I also learn, I feel like the mentees also give us things to learn about too. Not just that we're translating knowledge to other folks, and then you see them blossom, and it's so cool to see them then, you know, put their into the community and give their reach to, and being very passionate about it as well.
Yeah, maybe you'll be a good manager then, looking at someone grow.
Oh, Kat, no, don't go there.
I'm into it.
Yeah, I like people. I really do. You know, going back to that side tangent about management, but I wonder if for myself, I'd maybe get a little too deep into it, and also wanting to make sure that my work is very good too. So same as Zoe was talking about, it's just not enough time to, not enough time to do things well like you would want to. Because I know me, when I like pour myself into someone, then I really do it and want to see them very much succeed. So, and then you end up working a million hours and yada. So I'm trying to also find that balance as well, not to take too much. So maybe one day, Kat. I'm still not convinced it's for me.
One day you'll text me and be like, I got the manager role, finally. I got into management.
I think the other thing as well, you know, for people who are technical, there will come a point when you start going up that leadership path that you have to stop being hands-on technical anymore. You know, and that's kind of where I've been for a little while. I do still keep my hands-on because I like it, because I'm passionate about it. You know, a new feature will come out, I'll be going and looking in the Teams admin center to see if the settings are there, and rather than me having to test it, I'll get someone else to test it and report back. So you can still kind of keep close to it, but you know, if you like building things and kind of being hands-on technical, then there'll come a point where you can't do that and kind of manage a team or a function effectively.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you're gonna get a little hands off with the tech. That might be the stopper or the blocker. Then
that
not now anyway.
We had so one of our directors. So I work, like, my side of the company where I work, Power Platform is effectively a startup. And so one of our directors recently left, and I got asked if I wanted to take on some of like those responsibilities to do like enterprise architecture, engagements with customers. And I like the envisioning workshops and whatnot. Architecture, to me, I'll say, it's as my pod leader said, he's like, it's kind of the unsexy version of like what we do, right? It's a lot of paperwork, but I got asked to fill in this role and start training for it. And I was like, how much time is this going to take? Like, my primary thing was I moved into tech because I wanted to build. Like, I don't want to be talking about governance and security. I get it's part of everything. And they're like, oh, it's going to be like maybe a quarter of your time, 20-25%. I was like, okay, that's my limit. Other than that, I really just want to be like building. That's I like interfacing with customers. Yeah. But I was like, I remember sitting through my first enterprise architecture. I'm like, I get this is important, but I think where I really excel is just being the woman behind the curtain, right? That's what I like.
In your head, you're just like, boring.
Unfortunately, I'm trying to keep a very open mind because I realize that it is very much something that comes with the territory. I didn't think I would be introduced to it so quickly, though.
Yeah.
That too, and now I'm supposed to be writing a 50-page adoption plan, you know, by end of the week. I'm like, I'm freaking out here. I've never done this before. They're like, you've got this. Like, flap your little wings.
It's good experience, though.
It is.
Always push yourself out of your comfort zone. That's the best way to grow.
That's, I mean, this whole experience, right, to get to where we are today has been an exercise in just keeping an open mind. And so, yeah, that's we're just continuing on that too. Because at some point, someone's going to ask me a question about best governance strategy or security or, et cetera. And I will have to answer that. So I want to be as knowledgeable as possible. But yeah, I admit it's not very sexy. Not to me.
Well, the only way you find out what you don't like is to actually do it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, clients, if anybody's listening to this, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it well. It's just not something that I enjoy, at least not yet.
Oh dear, that's so funny. So I did want to ask actually about so you do lots of great work in the community, and you mentioned obviously you've been doing that before you were MVP, and since it's kind of stayed the same, you're doing lots of great stuff. I know you're involved in the Women in Tech or Women in Teams Tech community. I don't know if I've said that right. But can you tell us a little bit about what that is, and if somebody was interested in getting involved, how would they go about it? How would they join the sessions and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a Twitter handle and a Microsoft form link that I'll give you that we can share with this recording.
Yep.
Which people can follow the Twitter handle and hear about all the great things that the women in the Teams community are doing. And if you want to actually join the community, if you fill the form in, then you'll be dropped into a team. I think this has been running. It's been running for quite a while now. It was set up by Laurie Potmeyer originally, and some of the people that she works with as a way to bring together some of the women from around the world. Actually, we do have people from all types of places and different cultures, and we generally have a monthly call. Quite often there'll be someone from Microsoft who'll come and talk to us. So someone typically from the team's product engineering team. Which is really interesting, and then someone from the community sharing as well. And I think it's just a really great way to kind of show the women who are working with teams that even if they're working in an IT department or in a function that's mostly male, that there are tons of really great women across the world who they can connect with and have as their wider team, and who they can learn from and share information with. And it's been brilliant. I've personally learned a huge amount particularly from some of the women working in other countries about, the different challenges they might have from an adoption perspective or different ways of working.
And I think that's really important as well, because you tend to be in the minority as like a woman in tech. There's always going to be, typically there's always more men in the room, not all the time, but in my experience anyway, that tends to be the case. So it's just nice to know there's other women doing a similar sort of thing, and getting a female perspective on things is different from getting a man's perspective on things. And it's important to have both. So being able to have that little group of that little escape, I think, is quite nice. And the sessions, they on there as well, and the team, they share like links to speaking sessions and any upcoming events and things like that, which is really, really useful. I've joined, there's a few that I saw and I was like, I didn't know about that. And there's tips of speaking and, tips of if you're looking to become MVP, there's even sharing information on that. So it's a really, really nice community. If you're interested in joining, we'll put the information in the show notes so you can get in touch. But speaking of women in tech, so you did a video recently on International Women's Day talking about some of the challenges that you faced being a woman in tech. And I'd love to get your kind of perspective on it, because you've had you've got a quite diverse background. So you've been in tech for a long time. You mentioned in the North where there's not many women in tech, and now you're grown into a leadership role. So you've had to, I'm assuming, overcome quite a few different challenges with that. Would you mind just talking us through what some of those have been and what you've done in the face of that bias that people sometimes have when it comes to women in tech?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been ambitious, and I've always kind of, learned quickly and applied myself to things. And one of the things that I found working in Leeds was the job market's a lot smaller. So it's not as competitive as somewhere like London, and it can be harder to get ahead. And it was just like my entire 20s were frustrating for me from a professional perspective, because I'd be passed over for promotion in favour of the man. There was one place that I worked where I was brought in as the external hire who had the tech background. And there was a guy who worked internally on reception. So he was kind of a receptionist who knew everybody in the business. And they put the two of us in kind of desk side support, field engineering type roles, acting as a go-between between the business and the managed outsource IT provider. So I was a technical person. He was a guy who knew everybody. And so some of the guys in the IT department would come over and they'd be like, Sean, what's the answer to this question? And I'd answer the question, Sean, what's the answer? And I'd say it like 4 times. And then Sean would repeat what I'd said. And they'd be like, oh, thanks, Sean, legend, walk off again. And at that same place, this one guy who did that actually, this was one of the first places where I started getting really hands-on with SharePoint. And he was in a full-day workshop, and we'd had quite an urgent request come in to do something that required changing managed metadata, and no one had ever showed me how to do this. So I kind of figured out what I needed to do, and I applied the change. And when he came back, I said, I've made this change. This is what I've done. Did I do the right thing? And he kind of looked at me as if he saw me for the first time and said, God, you do know what you're talking about, don't you? And he was just so patronizing. I've had blokes that, again, in my early 20s, I think I looked a bit younger than I was. I had blokes that I worked with who thought because I was nice to them at work, I was interested in them. So I'd get inappropriate messages. And you just have to battle through it. You shouldn't have to. And I hope to God it's different now. I don't think it is. I'll tell you another story in a minute. I hope to God it is. But for me, it was moving away from the north, moving to London was the point where it kind of became less important. And I worked hard. I applied for stuff. I applied for promotion. I applied for new jobs, and it didn't matter that I was a woman. And there was the last organisation I worked at. I think I've been in London 3 years, and I had 2 male sponsors there who were just fantastic. They just opened up doors for me. They were absolutely, absolutely brilliant. And I think you get to a point, particularly if you're like, from the north and you're a bit gobby anyway, you get to a point where you just don't take any nonsense. And I will call it out now. We did have a webinar for International Women's Day, though, like a panel discussion. And one of the young girls I think she's a junior consultant, said that even now she still get asked to take notes, even if there's a bloke in the meeting who's the same grade than her or lower. And I was just like, what year is this? What year are we living in?
Yeah, I think I've definitely had experiences now, still, where people, especially if you're the technical resource in the room and I'm in the room with a salesperson or salesman, they'll direct all of the questions to the salesman, and then the sales guy has to say, no, I don't know. Kat, can you answer this question? Yeah, which is pretty annoying. I've had a pretty bad experience in the north, actually, with a government organization where it was just horrendous. It was a couple of years ago now. It was when I was kind of starting out and I was a bit nervous, and it was when I was doing in-person workshops, technology workshops, and I was doing it in front of this organization. You had the IT director, you had some of his IT guys, and you had HR, and you had the project manager in the room who were women. And the way he spoke to the women was just, I was sat there like, is this real? So they were concerned because they were moving data into the cloud, and they were like, okay, we need to understand where the data's going, who has access to his HR documents. And he started laughing in their face, and he was like, I tell you what, we're just going to lift your stuff and we're just going to put it somewhere else. And it was horrendous. All the guys started laughing. Then he turned around to me because I said you could like messages on Teams. And he was like, no, you can't. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're on about. And it was horrible. And I was sat there, and all the men, it was just the women in the room. It was horrible too. And all the men were just laughing. And I was like, I'm never coming back here again. This is horrible. And I was shaking, and I was like, I do. And I was like, can you liken it as the basics of Teams? And I was questioning myself because I was like, he's made such a big deal of it. So unfortunately, things like that does still happen. That's probably my worst experience with it. But yeah, sorry to bring it down a little bit.
No, yeah. I think this is a safe space, right? And being able to talk about this and our listeners too, I think it helps put things in perspective. Or, like we have, like Zoe was saying, like she has allies, folks who have helped her get to where they are. we want tech to be that space where guys aren't acting like this, right? And that they are our allies and that they do believe us when we say what we're, know what we're talking about, not defaulting to the guy in the room. I think it's helpful to put these experiences out there, although I know sometimes just sharing them, it's like, sometimes you feel a little uncomfortable with it, but talking about it among like other women, it's always just like, we're all in the same boat here.
Yeah, we all kind of know. We're like, yeah.
We can relate. Yeah,
but it's not all bad. It's not all bad. I mean, in the tech community, I think that I've not come across anything like that. Yeah, I mean, the worst thing I've had is somebody just comment that I'm beautiful on one of my LinkedIn posts, which was inappropriate. But
it's a little
people.
That's probably
LinkedIn
the best.
Is not a dating site.
Yeah,
it's not.
It's like, all right, great, but what about the technical blog that I've just written? Is that beautiful? That's probably the worst that I've had. But yeah, I think that it's not all negative. There's loads of men out there who support women and what women are doing in my work anyway. It's only customers I've come across, I've had bad experiences with, not in my workplace at all, which is quite nice.
I agree. Yeah.
So I've had it. I think the worst incidents I've probably had, where I work at the moment, I've been there nearly 5 years, was actually with candidates that I was interviewing as a hiring manager.
Oh my gosh.
So I've got a couple of the architects that I've worked with who were in my team. I've got like a really good relationship with them. So I take one of them in because they'd have a deeper technical understanding than I would, not having been hands-on for a little while. And I always started the interview saying, okay, so I'm the hiring manager. I'm the person you're going to report to. This is one of the people who will be your peer in the team. This is one of the guys in the team who's going to sit alongside you. If they can't look you in the eye to answer your question, that's a really, really bad sign. And there have been at least a couple where I've interviewed them and I ask the question and they answer to the person who sat at the side of me who also reports to me.
Here's one way not to get the job you're interviewing for.
Yeah, it's like,
look the woman in the eye.
Well, you just think, how can you send them to a customer? It's like, okay, you won't look me in the eye. I've told you I'd be your boss. You cannot look me in the eye. How am I going to trust you on any customer site?
Oh my goodness, not good. Dearie me. Well, I think we all go through, things like that. I think it is getting better. I think from 10 or 20 years ago, I definitely think it's improved. We have a lot more advocating for women in tech than we did, I think, so which is quite nice. But yeah, men support women support women. Let's all support each other.
Yeah, shout out to
we just
allies.
Want to do tech and have fun.
That's it. We just want to do our jobs. We want to tinker with things. That's all we want to do. That's all I want to do. Yeah,
leave us alone,
do my job. Yes, thank you. Yes, that is the message. Just leave us alone.
Just let us get on with it. Just stop. Yeah.
but we also want to get paid the same.
Yes.
Yeah, pay us the same. Sure. Yeah, pay us the same. Pay us the same, but let us do a good job, and that's all we want. That's all anybody wants. My goodness, we're gonna put that as a hashtag in our social media. That'll be it. Leave us alone. Sam, just look conscious of the time. A couple of other things I wanted to ask you about. Speaking of, we just want to have fun. What is it that you like to do in your spare time, apart from obviously lots of community work and the tech stuff? Is there anything you like to do outside of tech?
Yeah, so you can see the one cat behind me. We've actually got 5 cats. We've got another kitten on the way. So I'm not, I'm just going to put this out there. I'm not the crazy cat lady. Every single cat was instigated by my other half. Sure. But yeah, so we've got 5 cats, which highly entertaining when they're not trying to distract you when you're presenting to clients, which is great. I read a lot, so my job's super intensive, and when I'm not working, I'm learning about things in the community. And what I find is if I sit in front of the TV, I end up doom scrolling. Yeah. So I'll just sit on the sofa and be like, all right, oh yeah, nice blog, LinkedIn, Twitter, what can I look at? So for me, reading is the way that I stop that happening. And I just immerse myself in, science fiction or fantasy or something that takes me that's like generally quite big and challenging to read, because it just completely takes my mind away from work. And then music and gym and, you know, friends and food. We're massively into barbecue food. So we've got 2 smokers in the garden.
Nice.
You know, I love nothing more than kind of getting all the like Texan meat on the barbecue and cooking up a storm for our friends.
Oh, that'll be good with the hot weather coming in April, thanks to global warming. But sounds amazing. I gotta say, I did have a cat when I was younger, but I have a dog. Everybody knows Bruce. And he ate a sock on the weekend. I had to phone the vet. I didn't even their sock was there and I heard a gulp and then the sock was gone. I was like, you little. So I phoned the vet. I was like, is he going to die? And they were like, no, he's fine. Just let him pass it through. I was like, you little bugger. He'll eat anything. It's horrendous. So yeah, hopefully your cats aren't sitting there eating loads of socks.
Yeah, not socks, but so the biggest one we've got is also the youngest. So he's a Maine Coon, so he's massive and he's only about 18 months old, so he's still a little, I don't know, like adolescent idiot. And his favorite place to sit when he comes in my office is behind my PC where all of the wires are, and he just starts chewing on them. So I end up like instead of letting them like come in my room, you know, and entertain people by climbing around on my desk and stuff, I just have to lock them out because I'm worried that he's going to electrocute himself.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I didn't think I was like, oh, that's annoying. Your screens will turn off. Not the fact that you'll die. Like, no wonder my dog's eating socks. I'm just
yeah, maybe I have a dog. All my socks don't seem to have a partner anymore. So I've got an invisible dog in my house that's eating. Bruce is telepathically eating my socks.
Yeah, he's eating all your socks. Can't believe it. Anyway, he's fine, everybody. Don't worry. He passed it and he's not got a sock in his stomach anymore, I hope. I mean, I don't know if he's eating more. So I've only seen him eat one. So anyway, that's a good place to end. Eating socks. Before we go, Zoe, is there anything else that you would like to share? How can people get in touch with you if they
so you can always find me on Twitter. My handle is SharePoint_Zoe. I've had that for years and I feel like I should change it to something that's a little bit more inclusive of just SharePoint, but you know, when you've had something for so long, you're kind of worried about changing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, SharePoint_Zoe, or you can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining the show. It's been absolutely amazing. It's been great to chat. We'll put the Women in Teams link and information in the show notes, as well as Zoe's contact information, LinkedIn and Twitter, so you can follow her on social media. But it's been an absolute pleasure. So I always butcher the ending of the show, but key things: follow us on Twitter at CloudCons365. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're listening to the show. Make sure you like and share. It all really, really helps. And I think that's it. Azure, it was amazing speaking to you again as well. Great to have you back on the show. And I hope you have a really good rest of your evening and catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Brilliant. Thank you.